Hi, I'm Sam Kirchmeier, VP of Engineering at Livefront, and this is Continuous Delivery and Automation at Livefront. If you haven't been introduced to Livefront before, we're a digital product studio. We build digital products or apps for lots of different platforms. Often that's native mobile, platforms like Android or iOS, but also for web, voice, TV, or augmented reality. But regardless of which platform we're working on, we work iteratively. And one of our goals on the engineering team is to ship working software as soon as possible. We do that so that we can get software in the hands of our own team, product, QA, etc., but also our clients and potentially even end users. We want to collect feedback about what's working and what's not working in the app as soon as possible so that we can integrate those learnings back into our development flow. Because we want to do that as efficiently as possible, we put a lot of energy into automation and continuous delivery. There are a few goals we have in mind when we think about automation at Livefront. First is we want to automate everything. Anything that's a task that can be automated, we try to automate it. This includes the standard things like running a linter and reporting on linting warnings or errors, running the build, unit tests, including deployment, etc. Those are things we automate at Livefront. We also automate some things that aren't quite as common, and I'll talk about those in more detail in a minute. We also want to release everything as soon as possible. We put an emphasis on minimizing the time between when a feature is complete and merged into the main branch and when that's released in a build for our product and QA teams to start testing. We also want to connect siloed systems. The classic example of this are the product management tool and the source code management tool. Those two systems contain a lot of related information about what the team is working on, but by default, they're just not connected to each other at all. In our case, that's Jira and GitHub. And part of what we do during automation is try to connect those systems for efficiency on the team and to share that information between people who might be using Jira or might be using GitHub and need access to the other. We also use automation to improve the quality and consistency of both the source code, but also our process. There are a lot of little details we have to keep in mind during the development lifecycle, and sometimes those details are easy to forget or easy to make mistakes doing. So the more of those we can automate, the better. These are things like reminding us to test for accessibility conformance or moving tickets between swim lanes after a PR is opened or PR is merged and reviewed. Standard parts of an automation pipeline might look something like this: lint and report warnings and errors, build and report warnings and errors, run unit tests, build the prod release, and deploy the prod release. In this case, we're talking about a native app on Android or iOS, so the example shows TestFlight or the Play Store. For other platforms like web, it's common to build for multiple environments, lower environments like dev and staging and prod. For native apps, at Livefront, we always do two builds simultaneously. We always create a QA build and we create a prod build and have those both available for release. The QA release includes some additional debugging tools that help us during the QA process. We never release those to production. One tool we use is Loop. That's a tool we built at Livefront, and Sonia has a great Livefront talk about that. If you haven't seen it, check it out. We also include additional debugging info and an environment switcher, feature flag options, etc. The important point here is that we always have a QA build and we always have a prod build after every change is merged to the main branch. That means that we're always in a position to release anytime. The automation pipeline at Livefront looks a little different and it's a little bit more detailed. Something like this. Here we have pipelines for when a new pull request is opened, when a PR is merged, and when a release occurs. There's lots of detail here, but I want to focus on the things that we've built a custom system to handle at Livefront. We have a tool at Livefront we call the automation server. The automation server does those tasks that help us improve the quality and consistency of our development flow and the code that we produce, and also connect the disparate systems we use together. This is a list of the things that the automation server does, and we'll start with scan and alert about third-party dependencies. This is important for us at Livefront because we really tightly control which third-party dependencies we use. Whenever it's possible, we always try to write the source code ourselves. It's easier for us to maintain, and it's nice not to have that dependency on a third party for certain functionality. But it's inevitable that we need to use third-party tools, and our policy at Livefront is that when we introduce a new third-party dependency, we get permission on the team, but also in writing from our clients. The automation server can detect that automatically and posts a comment on a pull request that includes a new third-party dependency. The automation server also adds a review checklist to every PR. It does this by looking at the ticket in Jira and finding items that the team has decided are important for this feature, things we don't want to forget to test during code review. This really is just there as a reminder to help keep these things top of mind and make it as part of the code review conversation. You can see some things in this example screenshot, like making sure that all of the static text is localized, making sure the voiceover works for accessibility support, or gracefully handling error states. This is decided up front during planning by the team, and the automation server links that data from Jira to GitHub. The automation server can also move relevant tickets in Jira from one swim lane to another. In this example, the developers opened a pull request for the feature they're working on, so the automation server moves that ticket from the in-development swim lane to the in-review swim lane. This is just one less thing for the developer to remember to do, and it's helpful to keep the whole team in sync on what the real current status of the project is. The automation server can also link GitHub to Jira. It does that by posting comments with links to relevant tickets in a GitHub pull request. It does the same thing in Jira to link to the GitHub PR. This is helpful for our QA team and others on the team that might be focused on the tickets, but also from time to time need to review the work that's actually getting done in GitHub. The automation server keeps a changelog up to date, which is something we do for all of our projects, but again, this is just something we don't have to worry about because the automation server does it for us automatically. It can move tickets after code is merged and released in a build. This lets the QA team know immediately, as soon as code is ready to be reviewed or a feature is ready to be reviewed. The QA team sees it in the in-testing column, knows which build number that feature appeared in, and can start testing it right away. The automation server updates those tickets with the correct build number. It actually generates the build numbers and updates those tickets automatically, so creating new, unique build numbers isn't something the team has to worry about. Part of our process is to create design and accessibility audit tickets. We have design and accessibility audits at certain points in the development lifecycle. When a feature is 80%, 90%, or 100% complete, we'll go back with the design team or do a separate accessibility audit just to ensure conformance and make sure that we're keeping a high standard for the work that we're doing. The automation server creates those tickets automatically by looking at Jira, checking an epic to see how complete it is, and if it meets the threshold, we'll automatically create those tickets. And again, this is just something that the product team doesn't have to remember. It's something that can be easy to forget, but we don't have to worry about that because the automation server is doing it for us. A small thing, but important for us, is if the build fails, we get immediate notifications about that in Slack. This helps the team respond quickly to any downtime or know right away if maybe there's a problem that might interrupt a release on a given day. The automation server can increment the app version after a release is publicly available. Taken individually, none of these tasks is a game changer. They're all relatively small, they're relatively easy to do, and they could be done manually. But all together, they help us operate much more efficiently, they help us maintain a high standard for quality and consistency. But besides the efficiency and the quality and consistency, the real killer feature here for us is scalability. Not only for a single developer or group of developers working on a feature, but it scales across the project for multiple developers and multiple teams, potentially even working on multiple platforms on the same project. At Livefront, we're not just working on one project, we're working on multiple projects, so we get this scalability and this efficiency across all of our projects that we work on. We're always looking for ways to improve this process, automate more, help us maintain our high bar for quality, and help us work more efficiently. Thank you for watching.